Hello, everyone. Good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening. It's evening where I am, and my name is Chinonso Clark. Um, Today is episode 2 of our conversation series themed She Leads for Impact. This series has been designed by Lead for Good Africa in commemoration of International Women's Month, and we're having conversations with 5 different women who are leading for impact across Africa. Of course, I'll tell you about our organization. Lead for Good Africa is a leadership development training and impact consulting social enterprise. And our vision is to eradicate poverty and elevate the quality of life in Africa through leadership development, capacity building, impact consulting, and program implementation. And I'm super excited to be having today's conversation with a lady who is leading, she's called the Goal Setter Girl on Instagram, and I'm really looking forward to her joining us today. So I'm going to try and send her an invite so that we can go ahead and have this conversation. Yes. While we wait for her, yes. I can see that she's on now, yes. And so I'll just go ahead and talk to you about yes. Hello, Tafadzwa. Awesome. Good to have you.
Awesome to be here too.
Okay, your audio is low.
Okay. Can you hear me any better now?
Getting there. I think it's coming up gradually. Yes, I think I can make do with this. Yeah. But you can hear me clearly, yes?
I can hear you clearly. Sometimes my voice does trail off. So if I start to go low, you can always
okay
to speak up a little bit.
So that I can hear you clearly, I'm just going to try and connect with my. It's just that might take a bit, but let's just go ahead with the conversation. It's a bit faint, but let's go ahead with the conversation. Today I'm super excited, about this conversation because I've looked at what you're doing, and it's sort of aligns with my passion as an individual and what we're doing at Lead for Good as well. Just encouraging more people to lead from a place and live basically from a place of effectiveness. And effectiveness comes by clarity. So you have to have clarity about your life, what you're doing, and that's the only way. There's no trick to this thing. So before you go ahead, let me just read your profile. I summarized it nicely. So I say that Tafadzwa is a coach, she's a trainer and consultant with a passion to help teams create the clarity, skills, and systems required for high performance. She designed the Goal Getter Planner, a customized daily organizer with tools for setting smart goals, planning, and tracking progress across 8 life areas. I'd love to know those 8 life areas today. Well, with this tool, she coaches high potential young professionals to accelerate personal and career growth. She's passionate about increasing productivity for individuals within teams, and her work focuses on creating and facilitating team building, training, and strategic planning events that create clarity, skills, and systems for greater alignment, engagement, and high performance. She's also a member of the JCI Club. I'm sure everyone knows what JCI is, where she recently served as the 2019 National President of JCI Zambia. And she's a certified JCI trainer who has facilitated trainings at international JCI conventions in Germany, Ghana, and South Africa. I think for me today, Tafadzwa, is the fact that we can save this conversation and we can always refer back to it. That's really what is key for me today. So my first question for you would be, please tell us about your journey. I always like to hear about people's journey because that's what sort of brings perspective, with regard to every other thing that you're going to share today.
Awesome. So my journey into this work goes back in the day when I was still in my 20s. I was still young and in my 20s. Particularly the time just after I finished uni. I found myself in a space where I felt like year in and year out, I thought back then that I was setting goals, right? And every year I would start the year and I'd be excited and be like, okay, this is my year. This is the year that I'm going to do all the things. And you're just coming out of university, there's all of these ideas and dreams that we have around what it is that we're going to do, by when we're going to do it. And every year I started with that level of excitement of the things that I wanted to do. But fast forward to the end of the year, and it would be like, still here, still don't have the car that I dreamt of having, still don't have the amount of money that I thought I would have, still not close to God the way that I thought I would be, right? But at the same time, I did find that around me were peers and older people who I felt that they were actually making progress with their goals. They were doing the things that I wanted to do. They were getting the things that I wanted to get. And there was just that disconnect for me of like, so what is it that I'm doing wrong, right? And the more that I started to pay attention to them and have conversations with them, it then became apparent to me that there were actually some things that they were doing differently. There were things that they were, thinking about differently. So my journey began with my own frustration about me feeling like I'm always doing the work. I'm getting and spending money. I'm spending time. I'm spending energy, but not getting the results that I wanted. So the purpose of my journey when I started was to understand how to get the things that I really want. And now my purpose is now translated to helping other people learn and find out what it is that you can do to actually get the life that you want. So my work now in coaching is I coach high performing young professionals to help them manage their money, time, and energy to create the life that they really want. Now, when I then joined the corporate world, I started off as an intern in HR. And one of the things that really struck me back then was just being able to see how people who were struggling with performance in certain areas would be sent sometimes on, like trainings to acquire certain skills, knowledge, and sometimes even just mindsets, right? And then being able to see how when that person came back to the office with that newer mindset, perspective, or knowledge, they were then able to perform. So my work with teams now is about how do we help teams to sort of become one, to become aligned on what it is that they're doing, why they're doing it, who does what, who should be doing how much of what at which point to achieve their results. So now my work with teams is around I align and develop teams to help them achieve high performance. So really it all comes from my own struggles, my own observations, and wanting to be able to help other individuals and other teams to elevate their performance and create the results that they really want.
Thank you for succinctly explaining everything that you're doing and how you got here. So, of course, your frustrations led you here, and now you're working with great clarity. I hope you can hear me clearly. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay, so you spoke about helping people manage their time, their energy, and money to get the life that they really want, right? My next question for you
Yeah.
is how relevant is vision in getting the life that we want as individuals?
It's everything. Well, not
I
everything,
guess
maybe not everything, but it's a starting point, right? Because for me, the idea of the vision is creating a compelling image of what it is that you want to be, to have, and to do, right? So, and I also sometimes liken it to the idea of like if you wanted to go anywhere, but you are not clear on where it is that you want to go, you could literally go anywhere. It feels like you're going somewhere. It feels like you're making progress. But if it's not the place that you wanted to go to, then it's literally in vain because you're not going to where you want to. So vision for me is very, very important because it is the process of clearly defining what is it that we want to do, right? Or where is it that we want to go? What do we want to be? What do we want to do? And what do we want to have? So that for me is very, very critical. Then once we have a vision, the goal setting bit now is thinking about, okay, so if this is where we want to be, how do we get there? Like, what are the smaller steps that we need to take? What are the milestones that we need to achieve to get to where we want to go? So for me, vision and goal setting are sort of like the very, very critical starting point. And if you do not have that right, you could be going very fast, very
nowhere.
consistently, but you end up in a place you don't want to be, or literally nowhere because you might have just gone round and round in circles and coming back to where you started.
Absolutely spot on. So why is it that a lot of people struggle with clarifying
the vision for their lives and even working to the point of, defining the goals, the small goals to get to where they, why is it that a lot of people struggle with that? Especially in Africa, I think.
That's very interesting that you say that, because I've had the opportunity to sort of work with people across the world, and I must say that I would dare say that it's a global thing,
Right.
right? Because I think that in even in the developed countries, like a lot of the academic curriculums do not teach people how to set goals, right, and how to have visions. And I think part of the problem, particularly for our age and our generation, is that we have a lot of influence from media. Um, Social media is great, but I feel like it's also just giving us too much information about what everybody else across the world is doing. Not just across the world, but like even in your neighborhood, like social media is telling us so much of what the other person is eating in their house, like what they are bathing with. We know what people are bathing with. We know what people are eating for supper. We know where people are having their meetings. So I would say the first thing is just we have an overload of information about what other people are doing. And so if you are not careful, it's so easy for you to begin to define success by what it is that you're seeing. I remember laughing and I was saying to my best friend, like there was a point where Instagram, and social media was showing us so much of people, like the whole idea of relaxing, being, like people drinking a glass of wine, right? And I remember one day I said I had a crazy training day, um, and I was like, I feel like walking into a restaurant and asking for their best bottle of wine. I don't even drink wine, but but Instagram and social media has shown us so much of what other people are doing and the metrics and the standards of what success is like for other people. So the process of you defining your own vision, unfortunately, takes a lot more work than sitting and strolling and consuming what other people are doing. The reality is creating your own vision is work, and some people do not want to work, right? Two, some people just don't know how to do it, right? Because we are being fed with all of these things. It's also just the idea that people do not know how to craft their vision. So I would say it's an overload of information. Like we are getting so much of what other people are doing, what other people value, that it could be very difficult for us to then be able to extract what matters for ourselves. But even when people want to clarify their vision, sometimes people just don't know where to start.
Wow, thank you for that. That's so true. But before we continue, I think you need to check your audio because I've got a few messages that some people can't hear you. So if you want to check.
Oh, okay. Hang on one moment. Let me see. Is it any better now? Oh, hang on. I've now lost you. I can't hear you
I am
anymore.
on mute. I can hear. Can you hear me now? Awesome.
Yes,
Awesome.
yes. Are you
Yes,
hearing me any better?
it's much better now. Much better.
Okay,
Awesome.
perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay, so you spoke about before we let me just do a recap for whoever it is that's joining us. We're talking about some of the obstacles that prevents people from actually clarifying their vision. One, we said overload of information from media, and then it takes a lot of work to actually create your own vision, and not many people are willing to do the work. And then you also said that some people don't even know where to start. Okay, so let's talk about where can so for anyone who's watching this and they're not sure about their life vision, they have to clarify their vision. Where can they start? What are the practical steps, to guide them on how to start clarifying their vision?
So I then sort of come back to social media. And I think that's a good place to start from. And it might just be paying a bit more attention to what it is that you are drawn to, right? So usually I say your vision is really just you thinking about what is it that I want in my life. And I do say that, whilst you're on social media, or if we are consuming other people's lives, that might be a good starting point for you to just observe what is it that you're drawn to, right? Because interestingly, in as much as there are like thousands and thousands and thousands of things that we consume online, there are certain things that stand out for you, right? And I'm always amused because thanks to the algorithm, sometimes if you're ever to check what, like your friend or your husband or, other people around you, you would actually observe that people are drawn to different things. I have friends who like just watching like the aesthetic accounts where you see people just cleaning the house, and I'm just like, why? Why would you spend hours, watching somebody else cleaning the house? And my friends would also be like, why do you spend hours watching other people just speaking and speaking and speaking? So firstly, the whole process is about you paying attention to what is it that you are drawn to, right? And social media might be a good place to think of it. But also when you think about your life, you could think about, okay, where exactly do I want to be in your life? And you mentioned earlier on that with the goal-getter system, we do have, like, I say 8 life areas, but actually there are 12 life areas that we look at when you're working within the goal-getter system. And I'm just going to quickly read through them, right? But that is another way that I sort of help people think about, like, okay, if you look at these areas, where is it that you want to be, right? So I talk about physical health and fitness, mental health and self-care, spirituality, character and personality, work ethic and productivity, personal finances, family and friends, significant other or romance, career, business, personal development, and community service. So usually I would share these 12 areas, and then I would ask people, depending on where you are. For some people would struggle to visualize themselves in like the where I had. So if you say to people like, where do you see yourself in 20 years? People will be like, successful. And but once we break it down into these areas, it's then sort of like really, really thinking about, in a certain amount of time, where do you see your physical health and fitness being? And I do provide prompts around, okay, when we're talking about physical health and fitness, I always push people like, what's your ideal weight? How fit are you? Like, how far could you go if we asked you to run? Like, how fit are you in that sense? In what state is your mental health, right? Are you always anxious? Are you at peace? Are you calm, right? When we talk about personal finances, it's asking questions like, how much are you earning? How much is in your bank account? How much do you have in investments? How much have you saved? It might also even be a question of like, how much debt do you have? Because the reality, some people are going to be in debt at that point, right? So thinking about it from a whole perspective of like, you're a whole human being. And many times when we think about the future and our success, we tend to think about, like maybe finances, careers, and sort of like the bigger picture thing. But I challenge people to go into the detail of all of these areas, really thinking about what do you want your life to look like. The 8 areas is what I then challenge people to prioritize, to say, yes, there are these 12 life areas, but I want you to focus on just a few areas for now so that you're able to actually make progress with them. So pay attention to the things that you are drawn to. Really, really think about, what do I want to have, to be, to do in my life, and then go into all of those areas and sort of like create pictures. One of my favorite tools for visioning is creating a vision board, where I really say to people, flip through magazines and just cut out or take out the pictures that speak to you, because then they become a representation of the things that you want to have. So thinking that, I want to have a car in the future versus I want to be driving a Hilux by August 2026 are two different things, right? So it's like, or I want to have a nice house versus I want to have a 5-bedroom house in a specific neighborhood. So the visioning process for me is find pictures, find images that create for a compelling case of what you want to be, what you want to have, and what you want to do in the future.
Thank you. I love that you stopped at vision board, your vision board. One of the challenges I see that sometimes people have when it comes to the concept of having a vision board is they just pick random images, right? They're not clear, because the idea of a vision board is there must be a foundation within you after you've introspected, after you're clear. But people think that vision boarding does, oh, yeah, vision board, don't work because they don't do that first work of, building a vision board based on who they are and where they're going, what they want to do. You understand? So I think we should let's speak more about clarifying our vision, right? And so that some practical questions that we could ask ourselves. I know you said we should look at what we're drawn to, what we want to be, but sometimes people they're not even still clear, right? So let's go deeper on this particular question so that anybody who watches this can just take those questions and then do the work themselves. Like you said, it's hard work, but let's encourage more people to do that work and then of course find meaning along the line.
And you know what? To be honest, we do a lot of hard work. And,
Yeah.
All right. Like, you're already doing hard work. If you're an adult, you're doing work. If you're an African adult, definitely doing hard work, right? Except doing a lot of hard work usually to survive. So I always challenge people and I'm like, do the hard work to get the results that you really, really want, right? So just in terms of the other questions that you can ask, and I like the idea that you said of kind of one of the practices that I do in my vision board parties is I have people also really think about where am I starting from? Like, where am I right now in my life, right? So who are you? What do you have? What are you doing? But who are you in that moment, right? Then now, when you are thinking about the future, it's kind of easier for you to then be able to say, okay, and I kind of also like to have people set a timeline, right? But I'm not a fan of like timelines that are way out because as human beings, we tend to overestimate what we can do in the long run and underestimate what we can do in the short run, right? So I saw this thing we say that like a lot of people overestimate what they can do in 10 years and they underestimate what they can do in a year. So it's easy for me to sit and say, I'm going to be a billionaire in 10 years, but fail to then sort of like do the quick math and say, okay, so if I want to be a billionaire in 10 years, can I at least become a millionaire in 1 year? Or can I make 100,000 within, like 1 month? So the questions that you ask yourself, and I would actually be happy to share one of the resources that I use. So maybe what we could do is we can ask people to message you either now or after the live, where they can just sort of like say vision board prompts, right? They can send them to you and their email addresses, and then we can sort of share the sheet with them, the worksheet with them for how to do your vision board and the sort of questions that you can ask yourself. But really, it's just questions along the lines of first, what do I want to be like? What is it that I want? But sometimes I also challenge people to think about what do you not want, right? So it's a vision of like what is it that we are creating. And I also usually do this when I work with teams. I ask the different team members to the question was like, if our work was successful, what would the world look like? Or what would the people that we serve look like, right? And I love the uniting power of a vision because I remember working with this one team at some point, and we sat in the room the whole morning. It was a project that had 3 different pillars, and that whole morning, the 3 teams were just fighting because everybody was fighting for their own agenda, right? And everybody was like, so we're like, okay, what is the vision of what we are trying to do? And everybody kept pushing their own agenda of what it is, like the pillars of their project. And I remember with my partner, we then said, okay, everybody stop. And we get people pictures and markers. And we said we want every team to draw 3 things that are going to happen in the communities that you are serving by the end of this project. When this project finishes in 2 years, we want you to draw the things that will exist or will be in those communities. They fought back. They were like, no, we are executives. We are here to strategize. We are here to discuss. We don't want to be drawing. And we insisted, we're like, just draw. Each team draw 3 things that are going to exist in the community that you serve. And at the end of the day, they all had things in common, right? Their drawings were pretty much the same. It was healthy children in the communities that they were serving, right? And now we're then able to say, okay, at the end of the day, everybody wants healthy children. In as much as we are doing different activities and different initiatives, this is what we are working towards, right? So for me, clear pictures are such a compelling thing. Clear words are such a compelling thing because they give you a very clear idea of what it is that you're working towards. So it's a question of what do you want, but also what do I not want in these areas. And it could really be what is it that I'm at right now in my current state? What do I no longer want to have? And then that can then shape the vision of what it is that you want to be, do, have, or create, whatever it is. So I would go back to the questions of really going into the details of what is it that you want to have, but also what in the current scenario or the current existence or the current situation do we want to solve or remove or to no longer exist.
Wow, that's so good. I really love the examples that you gave to buttress the points of the questions we can ask ourselves as we build a vision board. The clarity, where am I starting from? Who am I? And then of course we also set realistic timeline. I know that that's one thing, one challenge that we have. Let's talk about values that help us with goal setting. I know that sometimes people set goals, but they're not. We have a vision for our lives. We're clear about the vision, and then we set goals, but we find that we're not able to follow through sometimes. So let's talk. I know that our values as individuals go a long way in how much we achieve the goals that we set for ourselves. So let's talk about some of those values that you think are responsible for helping us achieve our goals.
The first one is discipline. Um, Discipline and just doing the work, consistently, doing the work at the right time. So we cannot underestimate discipline. And lately, I feel like I'm actually in a season where, and 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 you could invite me back in a year or two to share how this is going. But I'm literally at a stage in my life where I'm challenging myself and I'm saying, what if this year I didn't read as many books as I've read in the past, but I executed more
Mhm.
of what I've already read about, what I've already heard, what I've already been taught, right? Because I now genuinely believe that one of the biggest challenges is that it's not that we don't know what to do, it's that we are unwilling to do what we know, or we are unwilling to do it consistently. So one of the biggest values for success that I feel like if we were to grasp it, we would all go a really long way. Is discipline, right? Discipline to do the right thing at the right time, no matter how it goes. Now, doing the right thing at the right time then goes back to ensuring that we are clear on what is the right thing that we need to be doing at a time, right? And the right thing draws from clear vision, clear goals, clear plans, then clear plans will define the right thing that you should be doing at any point, right? So tied to that is clarity, but clarity as a clear vision, clear goals, a clear plan, and then sort of like clear things that you should be doing. And I always say to my coaching clients, I love your vision, I love your goals, I love your dreams. But if we have not gone into a process of detailing how much of what you should be doing by when to achieve your goals, we haven't done anything, right? Because if we could be very clear on what you need to be doing, and I usually give this example. I usually ask people, if I told you to go outside and run, how far would you run? Just go outside and run, right? And people are like, I'll run to the gates. Then other people are like, I try to walk really fast. Somebody will be like, I'll run 500 meters. Another will be like 10K. Another will be like 21K, right? And I'm like, okay, now, if I told you to go outside and run to a spot that is 7 kilometers away, how far would you run? Right. If I just told you to run and you ran to the gate and came back, you have run. If I asked you to run and you just ran 500 meters and you came back, you have run. But if I asked you to run 7 kilometers and you ran to the gate, is it good enough? No. If I asked you to run 7 kilometers and you ran 500 meters, is it good enough? No. So until you become clear on how much you should be doing, you could literally be doing something on an ongoing basis consistently, but not doing enough to achieve your goals. So if I want to buy a Range Rover, and I say I'm saving up money to buy a Range Rover, but I'm only saving $10 a month, like how many years would it take me to buy the Range Rover, right? So if the discipline to do the right thing at the right time, no matter how you feel, but doing the right thing is really rooted in you being very clear on where do you want to go, where are you coming from, how much do you have to do, and then working backwards to determine, okay, so if this is where I need to be at this point, then it means that on a daily basis, on a monthly basis, on a yearly basis, this is how much I should do. So top value for me, and I'm like, if you master just one thing in 2023, that will make a big difference for you. It's the discipline to do what it is that you're supposed to do. Then the other thing, when it comes to discipline, I strongly believe in accountability. And one of my favorite quotes around accountability says, accountability breeds discipline. So if, as an individual, you struggle to do the right thing at the right time, find accountability in it. And I always say to people, part of the reason that I do a lot of the things that I say I'm going to do is not because I want to or because I feel like it, but it's because I have accountability. If I told somebody that I'm going to do a thing at a certain time, the people in my life love holding me accountable. So if I declare that I'm going to do a thing, I know that I have people who are going to be checking in on me and asking me, Taffy, have you done this? Similarly, you might find that people who are very consistent with doing gym or reading or saving are usually people in communities of like-minded people, right? So if you join a runners club, if you join a gym with a trainer, if you have a savings challenge with other people, you are then more likely to be encouraged, challenged to actually do the right thing. So discipline and accountability for me right now are the two biggest things that contributes to success.
So some of the practical ways for people who struggle with discipline, because I know one challenge that I see a lot of people have is discipline. The discipline to start, the discipline to be consistent, the discipline to even complete, to complete what it is that they start. So what are some of the practical ways? I know that when I ask this question, they're like, you can read Atomic Habits, the book. I'm sure you know the Atomic Habits book. What are some of the practical ways that we can encourage ourselves to build discipline? You've spoken about accountability, and I really agree with you that accountability will help us build discipline. What are other ways that we can actually build discipline as a virtue and values as leaders and individuals?
So when it comes to discipline, I think that it then kind of ties back to what I said earlier on, right? It's like become very clear on what it is that you should be doing at any point, right? That really helps for the accountability. But then go a step further to sort of determine, right? And one of the things that I like to say is that if it doesn't have a date, a place, and a time, it's likely not happening, right? The reason that you and I are having this live right now and that our community is able to join us is because we clearly decided a date, a place, and a time. Unfortunately, for so many things in our lives, particularly the things that are at the core of who we are, we leave them undefined, right? And an interesting thing that I do when I'm speaking is that I usually ask, I'm like, okay, in this room, are there any people who exercise consistently, right? They raise their hands, and I'm like, okay, are there people who exercise sometimes, and they raise their hand, and I'm like, are there people who have been thinking of exercising for the longest time?
Never. If thinking like them, but they'll bring you back here. Don't worry. Go ahead.
Uh, and an interesting thing that I have found is that when I ask the people who exercise consistently, and I ask them, when do you exercise? Most of them are very, very clear. They'll tell you Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 6 o'clock, I go to the gym, right? And when I ask the people, so I usually start by asking the people who have been thinking about it but have not done it. I'm like, when would you like to exercise? And they're like, maybe in the mornings. Their answers are usually very vague, And then to the people who sort of sometimes they're like, in the mornings, maybe, a few days a week. I'm like, okay. And when I ask the people who exercise consistently, almost without a doubt, they have very specific days of the week when they go to the gym, very specific times when they go to the gym, very specific gyms they go to or routes that they run, right? Across the board, if you ask people who read consistently, I was asking a friend of mine the other day, he has read more than 10 books this year. And I said, how are you reading these books? And he said, I listen to audiobooks consistently on my way to work. That's the thing that I do. I don't play anything else. If you ask people who save money or invest consistently, again, you find that there's a pattern. They've already decided the amount of money, they've already decided where it goes, they've already decided what day of the month they're going to pay. So a big part of discipline is you being clear, right? If as much as possible, a date, a place, and a time of when you should be doing these things. Then, if you can set reminders for yourself, right? So if you want to read at a certain time or exercise at a certain time or spend time with a certain daily at a certain time, set reminders, right, to prompt yourself on this is when I should be doing it. And the last bit is really going to be sort of like self-accountability. So remember and understand that the state of your life is entirely up to you, the things that you decide to do. And be very honest with yourself to understand that wherever you are, whatever stage your life is in at this moment, is purely because of the choices and the decisions that you have made. And if you want to get to a different place, then you really have to do something different. So those would sort of be like my biggest things around discipline. Like if you can set a date, a place, and a time, set reminders in your life, and just really decide that you want it enough. You have to be fed up. Sometimes you have to be fed up of where you are at the moment. You have to. I think one of the speakers uses the word disgusted. Like you have to look at yourself and be disgusted by the fact that you are unhealthy. You have to be disgusted by the fact that you're poor or that you are in debt. You have to be disgusted by the fact that you are not knowledgeable and you're not performing in your work. You have to get to a place where you decide that this is just not good enough and I want better for myself and I'm going to do better for myself.
Wow, yeah, you have to take personal responsibility. Nobody can do the work for you know. And I really love the fact that you nicely have to you have to be disgusted with where you are and take responsibility for the life that you want to live and put in the work. I know that more people need to develop conviction, and that's what you talked about. Developing the conviction required to put in the work, to define what you want to do, when you want to do it, how you want to do it, and to be clear on how much you should be doing per day. That's a great stuff. So let's now tie it all up. How vision and goal setting helps us live a life of impact. What does impact mean to you? What does impact mean? How can we encourage more people to actually, leave that place of frustration to live a life of impact, satisfaction, and fulfillment?
I smiled when I saw that person because I feel like there's so much liberty, there's so much freedom in impact. Because I do not consider impact as something that is boxed in any context. Uh, Impact really, I think impact is a very personal thing, right? Because when we think of the people who have had the greatest impact on the world, it's across the board, right? Usain Bolt has impacted athletics, right? Barack Obama impacted leadership. Mahatma Gandhi impacted sort of like the world in terms of kindness. Mandela impacted the world in terms of, like freedom, forgiveness. Oprah has inspired us in the space of media and just becoming who we want to be. So for me, I love the concept of impact because it is not boxed, right? It's simply, impact is simply having a mark, right, on something, a mark or influence on something. What it is that you impact is entirely up to you, right? It's entirely up to you. And I always say that impact is not necessarily tied to your job or, like your big calling. You impact in so many ways. Just in the home where you live, you impact people. In the yard that you live, you're impacting people. To the place where you work. If you use public transport, either if you're commuting to anywhere, you can impact people by how you show up in traffic, right? By simply giving somebody else way, you have impacted them, right? You're being kind, right? If you're in public transport, the way that you treat other people. So impact for me is the joyful thing about impact is that it's not forced, but you get to decide what impact you want to have on the world. And part of deciding that for me, the two biggest ways that I love thinking about the way that you want to impact is one, you can think about what bothers you or what burdens you. Like the example that I gave earlier on, we are all touched, called, and compelled to different things. Right? So somebody could look at starving children, and some of us might be less impacted by it than others, right? Somebody could look at a community where there's no clean water, and another person could just be like, ah, they don't have clean water. That's life. Yet somebody will literally have sleepless nights because there's a community that doesn't have clean water. So a good place to start from is think about the things that burden you. What is it that burdens you? What is it that every time you think about it or look at it, your heart is so broken that it shouldn't be that way? That is one way of you figuring out the place where you could begin to create impact. Right? So it's your burdens and it's the things that you are also drawn to or convicted strongly that they need to be better in the world. So that could be another place for you to determine where you impact. But I also say to people, wherever you are at is an opportunity for you to create impact, right? Now, for meaningful impact, you then have to go through the process of what we have talked about throughout this session, right? Clearly defining what would a better or what would a best version of this thing look like, right? And again, going into as much detail as possible. Don't just say it could be better, it could be bigger, it could be more. I teach on smart goal setting, right? Which is just like the idea of like when you say we want kids to have better access to education, what does that mean, right? Are you trying to get more children into schools? Are you trying to improve the state of schools? Are you trying to improve the quality of education? Are you trying to, build better buildings and infrastructure? Are you trying to get better teachers to come in and teach in that place? So, whatever the case is, create a level of clarity around the area that you want to create impact on. Have a compelling vision that can attract other people to come. And I usually say for vision, it has to be grand. It has to be something that is very deeply inspiring, something that is so different from what it is that we are currently experiencing, something that is so big that it can inspire other people to want to join. Because if your vision is small and it's not challenging, then people are like, you can do it by yourself. Why should we come to do it? Right? So in terms of impact, you want to create a compelling vision that attracts other people to come and help you, that attracts other people to lend their expertise, their money, their time, their energy. But it has to be such a picture that we all look at and we clearly agree that we want this thing is better, and whoever comes and crosses in contact with this thing is bound to have a much better experience. So identify your area either by burden or passion or conviction. Set very clear, like the picture has to be so clear that you know exactly what you're trying to do. If it's something that you can quantify, put the numbers to it, right? How much do you want to create? Like how much impact do you want to create so that people can know? Then I would say create a plan. And for me, the planning process is simply being able to say, our current is where we are, our vision is where we are going. The plan is how are we going to move from where we are to where we want to go to, right? And again, like I said earlier on, the plan has to be very detailed around how much of what should we do by when. And if it's a very big vision, it means you're also deciding who should do how much of what by when, right? So again, that then enables you to attract other people to come into the vision and create the impact that you want. So identify your area of impact, set a very clear vision and goals, make a clear plan of how you're going to do it, measure and track progress, right? If you have decided that by a certain amount you need to be somewhere, define milestones by which you need to measure progress so that on an ongoing basis, everybody can know, are we making progress? Are we winning? Are we going to get to the place where we want to get to in good time? And lastly, going back to discipline and accountability, execute, 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 right? Execute, do what you want to do, review to see if you're making enough progress, which allows you to see, are you on track and you can continue going, or you're not off track and you need to do something entirely different. So I would say those are some of the things that can help people to live a life of impact. Define the impact that you want to create, whether it's whatever it is that you're called to, but make sure that it's something that you can clearly see, something that you can work towards and measure and see if you're actually making progress towards it.
Wow. So that's so good. Really, really good. I love how you've been able to just clarify how we can live a life of income. I think at this point, I think we've come to the end of our conversation. If you can just give an advice to someone on the benefits of actually clarifying your vision, setting your goals, measurable goals, with a proper time frame, like a reasonable time frame. What are the benefits? Let's wrap up with that. What are the benefits so that we can encourage more people to actually put in the work required to live a life of impact?
So let me confirm that the question is, what is the importance of clarifying the
Yeah, the
goals, setting
benefits,
goals,
the
and your
benefits,
time?
and your yes, the benefits.
I feel like it almost goes back to the thing that I mentioned earlier. If you do not have that level of clarity or plan, you're gonna be busy all your life. You will spend all your time, all your money, all your energy, and you'll either end up in places where you didn't want to go, or you will stay exactly where you are, which could be very frustrating for you, but it also changes the world of your
Mm.
influence, right? So for me, it's simple. It's because if we don't do it, we will either stay exactly where we are, or we'll go round and round in circles without getting the results and the impact that we want or the world deserves from us doing better.
Wow, that's a good place to close. That's a good place to close. I just don't think I should add anything to that. That's really good. The world needs your gift for whoever watches this, and the best way to serve the world with your gift and as a gift is to do the work that we've spoken about today. Clarify your vision, set the right goal, and then have an accountability group that you belong to, and continue to be consistent, to be disciplined. While at it. So thank you so much, Tafadzwa, for taking time out to have a conversation with me. I look forward to more physical engagement, whether in your country or you're here in Nigeria. So thank you. And thank you everyone for joining us. We'll upload the session on YouTube and you can catch the replay. So thank you. Thank you. All right. All right. Bye.
Thank you so much for having
Yes,
me.
yes. All
Cheers.
right, then take care. For any questions, please send us an email at info@infogoodafrica.org. All right. Take care, everyone. Bye.